thanks to all the hardworking drivers across the U.S. from the Allen Lund Company.
A day after a threat from the Secretary of Transportation over English proficiency requirements, New Mexico responds.
And the battle against an increase in size and weight limits for commercial trucks is heating up again.
And hats off to Ohio, which is staring down the truck parking crisis by taking action.
Welcome to the show. I'm Ashley Blackford.
And I'm Scott Thompson. Ashley,
Yes.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
How's it going?
Love
Big plans for the weekend?
Love a good Friday. No, which is exactly how I like
It's
it.
exactly what you need sometimes. That is exactly where I'm at, too. I've had a couple
Yes.
weekends of just nonstop
No, it's nice to
errands and doing this and doing that. I'm ready to just sit down,
Relax.
watch some college football.
take a nap.
We are going to talk in a little bit with someone from Ohio, Chris
Yes.
Hughes. We've been talking a lot about Ohio lately.
We have been. For good reason,
For
thankfully.
good reason.
Yeah.
Yes. They're taking care or trying to take care of the truck parking crisis. We're going to talk to Chris Hughes of the Ohio Department of Transportation about that plan. He's the project manager for it.
Yep.
Looking forward to that. We can ask him too, as we've asked, I think, every Ohio person that's come on the show.
Yeah. If they're
whether
a
they
Buckeyes fan.
a Buckeyes fan. So we
Yeah.
can talk to him about that. Also, we're going to talk to Bryce Mongeon here in just a little bit,
Yes.
a friend of the show, OOIDA Director of Legislative Affairs, about this issue that continues to kind of keep getting churned up. This
Yeah.
push to
A lot of these trucking issues have
They
been
seem-
issues for a long time and continue to be.
yes,
And this is certainly one of them.
which is why it's important that associations like OOIDA continue to talk about them,
Yep.
continue to push back
Fight
against
the
some of
fight.
these ideas. And this idea that we're going to talk about today is this idea of increasing size and weight limits for commercial trucks,
Yeah.
something that OOIDA has opposed from the get-go.
Bigger is not always better.
Bigger is not always better for a number of reasons that we can get into with Mr. Mongeon
Yes.
of OOIDA. So looking forward to talking with both of those gentlemen here a little bit later on. Let's get to some news, though, Ashley, and let's start with what I think has been the big news of the week here, this
Yeah.
ongoing coverage of the USDOT's enforcement of English language requirements. We told you earlier this week, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy threatened 3 states, California, New Mexico, and Washington State, saying that they need to enforce the English language proficiency standards, or if they don't, face a pause in federal funding, 30 days to do that. Part of this, of course, and I think this is where the conversation really got stirred up here, is that deadly crash in
Yeah.
Florida caused by a truck driver who Secretary Duffy has said had been pulled over in New Mexico in July for speeding, implying that that driver should have been taken off the road at that time. The Secretary also saying the driver, no doubt, could not speak the English language. But law enforcement, again, did not take him or his truck out of service. New Mexico has now responded. Want to make sure that we get that out there as well. Troy Weisler, New Mexico State Police Chief, said in a news release that federal officials are mischaracterizing, I should say, New Mexico's compliance with English language testing. He said they are currently in the process of complying with the new requirements, and that even if they had been in place when that trucker was pulled over back in July, they probably would not have, because law enforcement in that interaction, he says, had no communication issues with the driver. They did release a video
Interesting.
of the traffic stop. You can watch it for yourself
Yeah.
out there, make your own determinations as to whether they were having
It's hard to hear, but you
Yeah.
can tell, just by the exchange.
yeah,
that-
and again, you can make your own determinations whether or not this person should have been pulled off if the English language
Yeah.
proficiency was an out of service violation at that time. But again, I think we should circle back to the bigger picture here in the stance really that OOIDA has been taking for years now, that English language requirements are first and foremost about safety, which is what the USDOT is saying here as well. And again, that English language proficiency should be checked in the licensing and training stages. That is what
Yeah.
OOIDA has been emphasizing again for years. And as for the enforcement, we should mention of the English language requirements thus far, very much in the early stages here. FMCSA data has shown that more than 7,600 English proficiency violations were issued from the enforcement date through July. But out of that number, a bit less than 1,400 were placed out of service. So it's a story that's going to continue to go on for a while now. We'll keep covering it and obviously all the responses that are out there as well.
Yeah. A level playing field for owner-operators and small motor carriers is what OOIDA is asking to be part of the National Freight Strategic Plan. The U.S. DOT recently held a 30-day comment period where people could weigh in on priorities for the updated National Freight Strategic Plan. 66 comments were made, and of course, OOIDA was one of those. The association is asking for changes that would alleviate costs for small business truckers, as well as the need to address deteriorating highway infrastructure that, of course, results in lost productivity and compensation for drivers. OOIDA President Todd Spencer said this plan must prioritize fixing the nation's truck parking crisis and resolve other institutional barriers such as excessive detention time, inadequate driver training, and escalating freight fraud that can be mitigated through more practical federal policies. The previous plan was issued in 2020.
A quick side note.
Yeah.
I love anytime there's a comment period. I think you said there were 66 comments, I think.
66, yeah.
OOIDA, without fail, if it has
course.
anything to do with owner-operators, truck drivers in general.
They are chiming in.
Every single time, without fail, which I think really speaks again to the fact that the association is on top of these issues and advocating endlessly for truck drivers out there. So I just wanted to put that in there.
No, it's true. An emergency has been declared in the state of Washington after a semi-truck damaged the White River Bridge on State Route 410 between Buckley and Enumclaw. I had to look that one up.
You nailed it.
Thank you.
I think.
I hope
I'm going to say you nailed it. We'll get letters, but yes.
Yes, exactly. After the accident, Washington DOT officials restricted traffic from using the bridge in both directions, which prompted Governor Bob Ferguson to declare the emergency because he says the bridge is a critical lifeline for King and Pierce counties. He says they're doing all they can to get that reopened. Declaring emergency, of course, allows them to seek federal funding to help protect state dollars and get things going.
Yeah. And one more quick story here out of Arizona. We talk all the time about artificial intelligence, AI, and how it's going to be incorporated into trucking. It's also being used on the state level. Arizona DOT announcing an AI-powered truck parking availability system that is being deployed along Interstate 10 there. They're using AI-based cameras that are mounted at rest areas and truck parking locations. They take that information, they shoot it out to those signs, to apps, the smartphone app as well, and the traveler information website as well. So just another way that we're seeing AI kind of incorporated into our everyday lives there.
Whether we like it or not.
Whether we like it or not. Whether we like it or not, the conversation about oversized trucks, overweight trucks is out there right now, as it has been for a long time. We're going to take a very short break here, but when we come back, as promised, Mr. Bryce Mongeon of OOIDA's Washington, D.C. office, who is on top of this issue, and he's going to fill us in. And welcome back to Trucking with OOIDA. Ashley, we have talked about the constant calls on Capitol Hill for a number of things. One of the constant calls that continue to just never seem to go away are these calls to increase the size and weight limits for commercial trucks. They never seem to end. The same, I think, could be said for OOIDA's opposition to that push, which is still going strong. And the association is leading a new offensive as we speak. And joining us to talk about that and what it looks like and why it's needed is Bryce Mongeon, OOIDA Director of Legislative Affairs. Bryce, how are things in Washington, D.C.?
Well, relatively quiet with August, but we know things will be picking back up quickly. So it's a good time to engage on some of these issues.
Yeah. Do you like it when it's quiet, or does it concern you?
It never stays too quiet, so there's never really a chance to get concerned. I'm sure, as most people listening know, we've been real busy on a number of issues throughout August, so it's never too quiet.
That is a fact. Fact check, true. Let's talk about this issue here, because the association recently sent a letter to transportation leaders in the House and the Senate related, again, to the association's opposition to any increases to truck size and weight limits. Let's just start with asking the question, why now?
So Congress is working on its Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill. That's a fancy way of saying they're working on the next highway bill. And that highway bill is kind of like the Super Bowl for trucking and just broader transportation policy. That's where so much of what we work on is addressed. So, whether it's truck size and weight, whether it's, truck parking, whether we're fighting minimum insurance or all these other things, these are all issues that get kind of wrapped up into this conversation of the highway reauthorization. So those bills, a highway bill usually lasts for about 5 years. And so every 5 years or so, Congress has to reconsider what policies are we going to put in place, as part of this legislation. So that is why we're talking about truck size and weight and our opposition to it, because the House and Senate committees with jurisdiction over these issues, they are taking input and starting to put together each of their versions of the bills.
Bryce, talk to me about the concerns when it comes to the weight size and limit increase.
Mm-hmm. And so there's a number of concerns, and really what we stress is that it's bad for small business trucking. And that's because truck size and weight increases, really what they amount to are carve-outs for special interests or specific industries. And that's because in order to run at heavier weights or to run at these heavier weights, you need to be able to upgrade your equipment. That costs money. And also we know that when you run at heavier weights, you're going to be putting more wear and tear on your equipment. So that's more money to maintain your equipment. And experience has shown our members that when there are increases to, I should clarify, as part of this conversation, we're generally talking about truck weights. Longer trucks, bigger trucks are certainly a concern, but truck weight seems to be the most prominent issue right now. So on truck weights, anytime we've seen increased truck weight limits, small business truckers never come out ahead. Between those increased costs and the little, if any, increase in compensation that they've gotten, it never makes business sense to operate when those limits are increased.
And then, of course, there's the other considerations too. If that were the only consideration,
Sure.
I think that would certainly be enough. But that isn't the end of this, right?
Yeah.
There's also the concerns about infrastructure. There's also some huge safety concerns here related to all this as well.
Yeah, infrastructure as well, because our nation's roads and bridges were built to certain specifications, and they weren't built to withstand heavier truck weights. So if Congress were to come in and allow for heavier trucks out on our road, trucks are going to put more wear and tear on roads and bridges that weren't designed for them, and it's going to cost more to repair those roads and bridges. And, kind of getting back to what I mentioned before, that these policies kind of amount to a handout for special interests or specific industries. I'll take the logging industry, for example, because there's 2 bills in the House right now that would carve out an exemption for them. If you're thinking about infrastructure wear and tear, you're basically saying, if there's specific industries that can make use of these heavier weights, they get to use the heavier weights. They get some of those efficiencies. They're going to be putting more wear and tear and damage on infrastructure. But in the end, it's everybody who's going to be paying for the increased repair bill for infrastructure. So even if, let's say there was some sort of logging exemption that's put into place, all small business truckers are going to be, one way or another, footing the bill to repair our roads and bridges because of the damage done by heavier trucks. So there's concerns about, the cost to repair infrastructure and just the state of infrastructure generally, because we know our infrastructure is not in good shape. So as you see that increased wear and tear, truckers are going to have to operate on that as well. And turning to the other issue you mentioned, talking about safety, I should clarify this, and this is what we always bring to the table, is that certainly truckers and especially experienced truckers know how to operate safely, especially if you are talking about oversized loads or specific permitted loads or things like that. But generally, when you're talking about these truck weight increases, you're saying you're throwing the door open to anyone to drive at heavier weights. And at a time when we are saying that we need to improve and Congress needs to strengthen entry-level driver training standards, it's not the time to allow for heavier trucks for inexperienced drivers to be operating. So, we're not saying that heavy trucks can't be operated safely, but in the broader context of things, it's not a good idea to be allowing these heavier weights across the board when there's still a whole host of other safety issues that are out there.
As Scott said, early on that this is something that we seem to have been talking about for a long time now. How far back does this conversation go, and how far back does the opposition go?
Yeah, it certainly predates me being here at OOIDA, and I'm sure a lot of folks. It's I can't say for sure, but it goes back a long way. There's always going to be someone coming to Congress and saying, "Here's a really good reason why you should allow us to operate at heavier weights, because we can be more efficient, because we can save money, or for this reason or that or another." And for those interests that stand to save a lot of money in their operations, they're always going to be around trying to push for this. So this really is one of those issues that just hasn't gone away. And also too, the other factor that's at play is states have acted on their own to increase some weight limits. And that's, I think, another helpful point to clarify is when we're talking about truck weights, we're talking about truck weights on the interstate. So that's where Congress can set the limits. So what we have sometimes is states will go and set higher limits on their roads. And so, industries or people will come back and be like, wait, we can run at higher weight limits on local roads in our state. Why doesn't Congress just bump up the weight limit? So there's a whole lot of reasons why this issue is always there, because it's, there's also activity on the state and local level. So it really is just something I think we'll be dealing with, this highway bill. And I'm sure, if we're all still around here talking about it a few years from now in the next highway bill.
You raise an interesting point, and I think I like to at least look at these issues sometimes from the other side of the argument. And you talked about special interests. You talked about who's kind of, pushing for these things. Can we explore that a little bit? Because I think that will kind of help us maybe better understand why this issue keeps coming back up. And you kind of danced around it, but I think this is a classic follow the money situation. Talk a little bit about the people who continue to push this idea.
Yeah, and so there's specific types of shippers. The one that jumps to my mind is like the beverage industry, where what you're shipping is heavier. So they weigh out before they cube out, and so they would really stand to benefit from being able to operate their trucks at heavier weights. So that's where we've seen some of the push just from them and the coalitions that they work with for allowing heavier trucks across the board. Some of the more specific examples we've seen, or industry-specific examples, include a push from the EV industry. And what's going on there is electric vehicles are heavier, and so as you put the same number of electric vehicles on an auto hauler, they start to get heavier, and you can haul fewer electric vehicles compared to regular gas vehicles on an auto hauler. And so what they did is they went to Congress and said, hey, can we up the weight limit for auto haulers because we're not able to be as efficient with our operations because our vehicles are getting heavier. So they would stand to benefit because they can put more vehicles on a single auto hauler. But as we talked about before, now you're getting into the situation where you have heavier vehicles on the road, putting more wear and tear, and it's going to be one specific type of industry that's benefiting, and now everyone else is going to be paying for the improvements or driving on worse roads because they're damaging the roads just for this one specific industry. And again, another one, there's already some bills in Congress dealing with logging trucks. That seems to be one that pops up all the time. And that really gets back to kind of what I was referencing earlier. Some states have gone and allowed for heavier trucks on their local roads, and then those industries turn around and say, we don't want to be driving on our local roads. We don't want to be going past school. So why don't you just let us do it on the interstate? So you kind of pick an industry and someone will always have what they say is a good reason to increase truck weights.
Now, this is a group I know we've spoke with before, the Coalition Against Bigger Trucks. They've been very active in this, right?
Very active. Yeah.
Yes, they've been very active. And, I think at the top, you kicked it off by mentioning we sent a letter to Capitol Hill and leadership there expressing our opposition to increasing truck size or truck weights. And we're doing that as part of a broader effort from the Coalition Against Bigger Trucks. So Coalition Against Bigger Trucks, or CABT, they're made up of a whole host of organizations. We're included in that. Also, the Truckload Carriers Association is included in that. But it also includes the railroads, includes law enforcement, associations, includes local government representatives as well. Basically, all the people who understand that this is, increasing truck weights is not good for infrastructure, not good for safety. And as I mentioned earlier, the unique voice that we bring to that is the small business trucking perspective.
When you, and again, this is a letter. Behind that letter are a whole bunch of meetings and conversations that you and your colleagues there in the Washington, D.C. office have with, staffers, lawmakers, all sorts of people on Capitol Hill. So you've got the one side, the people pushing for longer, heavier trucks. And then you've got folks like OOIDA and the Coalition Against Bigger Trucks who are kind of giving the other side here, obviously. When you have those conversations with folks on Capitol Hill, and a lot of what you do is educating those people about what these issues mean and why they're important, how do those conversations go? I mean, do they, at the end of them, understand the dangers here? Do you get any pushback from people that you talk to there on Capitol Hill? What do those conversations look like?
Usually with these conversations, and this is really something specific to truck size and weight, I think there's a lot of receptivity and understanding of what we're talking about. I think for the most part, people understand. Certainly, they understand where we're coming from on this. I think sometimes there's a pushback, or at least kind of questions that we get, because there's the people on the other side of this issue. They have their research, they have their data showing allegedly that things like equipment upgrades to a truck will limit pavement damage and will make sure that trucks can still stop in the same amount of time. So we do get questions or kind of pushback on that, but I think, and I guess I should clarify too, we also have good responses to those. In particular, as I mentioned earlier, it's not cheap to upgrade equipment. So even if some of this equipment does help to mitigate some of the concerns, it's not free for small business truckers to do. And the one thing that we always rely on is there's really not a good answer to what happens with bridges that just aren't weighted for heavier weights. But I think the one thing that always happens with this issue, and we try to encourage lawmakers, is just to not take this issue up. I think we really encourage lawmakers to stay away from this issue because as we talked about before, it's always out there. People are always coming to Congress for their specific carve-out. So if someone's come to you and you're thinking about sticking your neck out there and supporting this, now you're going to be on the record as someone who supports truck weight increases, and you better believe people are going to keep coming back to you as someone who they think can help them out. So it usually is a good reception, but we have a message of you should really try and stay away from this issue.
Now, I never like to assume anything, but I am going to assume that the driver shortage narrative doesn't help this, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's another part of the equation that we're able to bring into it, is pushing back on this idea that we need to put more freight on each truck because we don't have enough drivers to drive all the trucks that are out here. And as we know, don't even need to spend much time on it. That's just not true, and that's another really important part of the conversation that we can bring. I think that is another moment when we are in meetings or have conversations with staff to try and connect all these dots and really put together a comprehensive case or a comprehensive way to push back on these policies. So that's absolutely a really important part of this message that we bring.
I guess the glass half full thing, way to look at this, Bryce, is if history is any indication, this won't go anywhere. But of course, that is because of action that has been taken in the past.
Yeah.
In terms of what this is going to look like over the next several months as the highway bill gets crafted, I know you on Capitol Hill and your colleagues there will continue to put this message out. The Coalition Against Bigger Trucks obviously has been great on this issue as well, and has strong feelings about it for obvious reasons. I guess it's our obligatory request to folks out there too. It's nice to hear from folks like yourself, obviously, but a phone call, a letter, an email from truck drivers out there about their real world experiences and how this would actually affect them, that goes even a longer way, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I will say this is probably about as close as it's especially important for people to reach out to their lawmakers now, because I would say it is about as close as proponents of weight increases have gotten in recent years to being successful. And I don't think by any means certain what the outcome will be here. As you said, we've done a lot of really good work, especially when our Vice President Louis Pugh was able to testify on a couple occasions this year. He was really able to push back on this issue directly to lawmakers in a very public setting. But we know that this is going to be a fight as part of the upcoming highway bill. So talking to your lawmakers about what this would mean to your business, talking to them about what would be the costs to upgrade your equipment at a heavier weight, I think is especially important, and what our association and what our members can bring to this conversation. So, like you said, we always have to plug it. Fightingfortruckers.com is a place where you can find information about your lawmakers and how to contact them. There's a couple bills floating out there right now, and lawmakers are certainly aware that this is an issue. It's not front and center at the moment, but it's something that they are definitely hearing about from proponents of truck weight increases. So getting on their radar and letting them know that as a constituent you're opposed to this is a really important thing to do.
Can I back up real quick, Bryce? Because you said that you feel like that we are, I'm paraphrasing here, but that we're closer than we have been in a while for this thing actually getting through. Why do you say that? What sense are you getting out there?
Well, I think just generally speaking, again, this is kind of general and broad characterizations, but Republicans have been more receptive to truck size and weight increases. And with Republicans controlling both the House and the Senate and the presidency, this is, I think, probably the best shot that proponents of truck weight increases will have. I think the message that they bring about efficiency, supply chain streamlining, and all this other stuff is, can be receptive to lawmakers. So just given the makeup of Congress and the White House and, how they've been pushing on this issue for years, that's why we are, I'm concerned about where this is going. I wouldn't say we're worried or anything like that, but I think this is, they probably realize this too, this is about the best opportunity they're going to have possibly for a while to get this done. So we know there's going to be a lot of focus on this.
Well, if that's not a call to action, I don't know what is. Yeah. Bryce, really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate your work on this. And we'll plug it again. Fightingfortruckers.com is the place to go to reach out to your lawmaker. And again, explain why this is a bad idea and how it would affect people in a very bad way. So, Bryce, thanks again.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, thank you so much.
That was Bryce Mongeon of OOIDA's Washington, D.C. office. We'll take a quick break. Trucking with OOIDA continues right after this.
We have been heaping praise on the state of Ohio recently for talking the talk and walking the walk when it comes to addressing the truck parking crisis. The Ohio DOT announcing a plan to add 1,400 new truck parking spaces across the state over the next couple of years. And the wheels are already in motion. Joining us to talk is Chris Hughes. Chris is the Deputy Director of ODOT District 1 and the Project Manager for this truck parking initiative. Chris, how you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Glad to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for talking with us. This is an issue that we have been talking about quite a bit on the show, and looking forward to hearing from you about that. Real quick, though, Chris, are you by chance an Ohio State football fan? I know college football season's right around the corner here.
Of course, I am a Buckeye alum. Big things coming. Very excited for the matchup with Texas on Saturday.
Yeah, we've got Louis Pugh here in the building, Executive Vice President. He's a big Ohio State Buckeye fan, and I think we talked to Tom Balzer of the Ohio Trucking Association, who was
fan.
a fan as well. So fun time. I love the culture there in Ohio with the football.
Yeah. So we want to, of course, tip our hats to you and your colleagues there in Ohio who are taking action on this truck parking issue, a huge issue. Let's start with a general question about the problem there in your state. How bad is the truck parking shortage there?
Yeah, I don't know that the truck parking shortage in Ohio is substantially different than the rest of the country. This is a national problem. We all know that truck parking shortage is evident across the state. I think one thing about Ohio, just because our unique geographic location is sort of the crossroads of the country, we have just an enormous amount of freight routes that go through our state. We have it's a destination route for a lot of industry and distribution, but it's also there's a lot of pass through traffic, and so I think we're experiencing the same things that the rest of the country is. However, maybe just exacerbated a little bit by our geographic location, which just generates a lot of truck traffic.
I assume you've talked to truck drivers about their frustrations. What else have you heard from them?
Yeah, we have, and we have a lot of fantastic partners in the industry who we've relied on to really gain a lot of insight. And we hear things that truck parking is the number one issue when truck drivers are polled. Even more than compensation in some cases. They really worry about the availability of truck parking. Additionally, when you sort of see the statistics on the amount of time it takes and how far drivers go out of their way to find parking, it really highlights that there's a lot of added time and cost put on the trucking industry because the parking isn't readily available. And so, it's like I said, I think it's something that we all kind of have an understanding, and we can see it every day. My daily commute to work, I drive by several locations where I see trucks parked up and down highway ramps and on shoulders, and obviously that's a safety issue. But it's we really have it. This is an issue that's been around for a long time. It's gradually getting worse as truck volumes continue to grow, and we're happy to in Ohio to be able to do our part here to at least make a significant dent in the problem.
You pointed out, and Ashley said, credit where credit's due. You're doing something on this issue. And you pointed out that this is a problem in every state in the United States. It's a nationwide problem. But again, you all are doing something about it. So credit where credit's due there. You talked about kind of the origins of this, and obviously to address a problem, you've got to identify the problem. This goes back a while. Can you remember, and maybe you jumped in the middle, but when did the conversations first start, on the state level there as to, hey, we've got a problem here. We need to figure out how to solve it?
Yeah, I know, and again, I've sort of been on the implementation side of this more recently, but I do know that Governor Mike DeWine, this has been an issue that he has been championing for his entire administration, and it goes all the way back to another program that we have in Ohio that has been partly implemented at this point to rebuild our rest areas across the state. And we're rebuilding a lot of rest areas, adding significant truck parking as part of those projects also, and that's not even included in the 1,400 additional parking spaces we're talking about here. So really this entire administration, the last 6.5 years of the DeWine administration, truck parking has been a priority. ODOT initiated a study in 2021, really for the first time to take a look at the scope of the problem and identify those areas across the state where we could sort of quantify this issue and really identify what those locations were that were in need of truck parking. And that's what more directly led to this effort that we're talking about today, is that 2021 study. And then things really got rolling last fall, as it became time to go from study to implementation and actually put our money where our mouth was and actually do something about it.
Yeah.
Now, 1,400 new spaces are going in. Of course, you can't just decide to do this, something this big and execute it the next day. I assume it takes a lot of planning. Can you walk us through the process from step one, where a decision was made to do something, and then kind of where we are today?
Yeah, well, it actually it doesn't happen the next day, but it happened pretty quickly. And
that's true,
sort of the piece of this where you sort of need a couple things to happen. One of those being the political will, from the governor and our director, and the state legislature to be able to do this. And once we had that backing, implementation was more of so we just started this effort less than 12 months ago. So this came to me and my team here in District 1 in early October of 2024. And we essentially hit the ground running. One of the unique things about this program is we are doing this all on existing state-owned right-of-way. So we're not acquiring any land for any of this parking. So the first step was taking a comprehensive look at excess land that ODOT owned across the state, and that is a variety of different types of sites. It includes land that was acquired back when the original interstate system was built that was identified for a future rest area, and the rest area was never built. It includes some interchange infield, so some cloverleaf ramps where we have access off of a side road. We're using some of that land. And also just pieces of land here and there that, for whatever reason, the state controls. And so we started that process last fall. Got an inventory of potentially suitable land that initially included over 100 sites statewide, and eventually through some analysis and trying to identify, which sites would be potentially suitable, we whittled that down to ultimately 33 sites that we are moving forward with currently.
Walk me back or take me back to about a year ago, because you kind of talked about it there, that the idea was presented to you and your team. Do you remember that initial conversation? Do you remember thinking, wow, that is a fast timeline? Do you remember thinking, how are we going to get this done? Or, was there excitement? Kind of walk me through your emotions, I guess, when it was first presented, like, hey, we're doing this and we're not waiting, we're going.
That's a great question. And yes, I remember the moment vividly. It was our Assistant Director, Mitch Blackford, our Assistant Director of Operations. And the initial conversation was more of a, hey, this is something we need to do. We need to do it quickly. What ideas do you have? And it was more of a brainstorming session about how to make that happen. I took that back to my team here in the district, and initially it wasn't going to be our district. There was no discussion about us actually managing this entire program. I was just looking for, hey, how do we do this? And took it back to the team. We came up with some schedules and here's how we can do it. If we cut out some red tape and we focus on results, we can make this happen on this time frame. Presented that back to our senior level management, and ultimately got buy-in on that. And then it came time to, who's going to do this? And we said, I think it's a challenge that our team here in the district would embrace. We did, and we never looked back. So it was exciting. It's been an exciting process. It's been a good challenge for our folks to be able to, implement something so aggressive in scope and in timeline and in really just the number of people that it affects.
Yeah.
It's just rare that you get the opportunity. We are one of 12 districts in the state, and to be able to be involved in something like this that doesn't just deal with our corner of the state, but also really impacts not only the entire state, but really the entire nation. As I mentioned before, truck drivers crisscross Ohio all the time, and so it's just been really a great thing to be a part of, and just really proud to be where we're at this point, and looking forward to breaking ground early next year and actually getting some of this under construction.
Well, and I think that's why it's so refreshing watching from afar, because I remember kind of the initial press releases that this was going to happen. And usually when you see things like that, it takes a number of years. But this has been, as you said, fast-tracked. I mean, the timeline is really accelerated. And that is why I think it's refreshing, because, again, you saw a problem, you've addressed the problem, you've taken action in a quick manner. I'm not going to ask you to give advice to other states because obviously they have their own things going on, but is there a lesson to be learned here from other states that are out there, again, that are dealing with the same problem? What lessons can they learn from how it's being done there in Ohio?
Well, I think one thing that I will credit towards making this successful, and I mentioned Governor DeWine and I mentioned the legislature, who really both had to have a part in this. Governor DeWine has been the champion of this, and the funding to be able to do this came through our recently passed transportation budget, and so it really required the political will in order to make this happen. So none of this happens without that. The other key piece of that is this is being done, this particular effort, with 100% state funds, and we in transportation, we typically deal with longer timelines, and a lot of that has to do with the use of federal funds. All states have access to federal funds, and depending on the state, it can be a majority of their transportation budget. There's a lot more red tape and process and strings attached to some of that federal funding, and so the ability, what really set us on a course to be able to do this so quickly, is the fact that we were budgeted state funding in order to do this. So that's really one of the things that's helped. So I guess if we're talking about advice to other states, if they want to implement something like ours, state funding is a great way to do it because it's more flexible and you can move more quickly.
Yeah.
But every state's going to be in a different position as far as funding to be able to do something like that.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned all these spots are going to be going on state land. Where specifically are they going, and where are you in terms of construction?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned before, we do have 33 sites across the entire state. And one of the things, and if you look back at our press release, we have a map out there showing all the sites. This is truly all across the state. It's all corners. It's all major routes. It's all interstates. This isn't just, hey, we're going to build truck parking in the major urban areas, or we're going to build it all along, a certain interstate. This is truly a statewide program. Out of those 33 sites, I think I mentioned earlier, some are land that was purchased along interstates or other major routes that was intended at some point to be developed into a rest area and never was. And so we'll be building those sites out, which they won't be rest areas for passenger vehicles. They'll be exclusively for truck parking. Some of these sites are current rest areas. So we have a number of rest areas where there was enough excess land adjacent to the parking lots and the buildings and all those things that we were able to add substantial truck parking. So we have quite a few sites that are those. We have cloverleaf style infields, so that the typically green area inside of a cloverleaf ramp, where if there was good access from a side road, we're going to be building parking inside of some of those ramps. And then there's some other areas that I guess, for lack of a better term, they're just random. They're nooks and crannies of land that is owned that. We found room to be able to add parking. So there's really no cookie cutter type site. There's really no typical kind of site. It's just whatever we could get our hands on that really was along with those major freight routes and was suitable to build significant parking.
I just want to emphasize again to make sure that we're understanding kind of how big this investment is. Because the American Transportation Research Institute projects now that Ohio will lead the nation in the total number of long-term truck parking spaces available on state-owned property, again, because of this project. That's got to be a source of pride. That's great. But also, I think it's important to emphasize, and I wonder if you can talk about this a little bit, it's important to emphasize that this is one piece of the puzzle, right? This is going to help, no doubt about it, but it's not going to solve the truck parking crisis there, right? In terms of doing that, that's going to take I suppose the private sector and a lot of other pieces kind of fallen in place. Have there been discussions on that and what that looks like? Obviously, you're playing a role, but there's got to be more involved here down the line from other people.
Yeah, that's a great point, this is, while this is a significant step in the right direction, just with the growth of truck traffic on our highways, this is certainly not going to be, the extent to solve the problem, and especially as time continues and truck traffic continues to grow, we're going to quickly see the gains by this eaten up and more need in the future. So, it truly is a multi-pronged issue. The private sector does definitely play a role, and the majority of truck parking out there in the state of Ohio, as well as across the nation, is privately owned, truck stops and gas stations and things like that.
Yeah.
I know we've seen the investment here. It's been very encouraging to see. We're up in Northwest Ohio, and there's a number of developments in this part of the state, and I'm sure it's happening around the state, where we are seeing growth from the private sector in adding truck parking, both to existing facilities and also brand new facilities. And so, I think as time moves forward, it's just, this is, again, it's a multi-pronged effort to try to help this issue nationwide. It's going to take the private sector, it's going to take the public sector, and hopefully, everyone can work together and help, acknowledge what a problem this is and work together on the solution. I know I did see something recently. Secretary Duffy has talked about truck parking, and there's some effort at the federal level. And so that's encouraging to see also, and so we're just glad here. It's been great to be a part of our efforts in Ohio to kind of lead this effort and really demonstrate what a state can do if you have the will to do so.
And just real quick too, the 1,400 spots, is it by the end of 2027? Those will all be in place. Is that right? That's the timeline. Am I remembering that right?
Okay. Correct. We are so about a third of our spots will be under construction and completed by the end of 2026. So by this time next year, we'll be getting real close to opening some the first of our sites. That'll be about a third, and the remaining 2/3 of this program will be under construction, and again is projected to open for use by the end of 2027. So by the end of 2027, all 1,400 spots are expected to be open.
That's great.
You mentioned, through this process talking with truckers. I'm curious, did any other issues come up that you'd like to address?
What's next on your list there, Chris?
I'm going to focus on trying to achieve this goal first before we move on to the next thing. But I really it's and that kind of brings up a good point. There are a lot of things that truckers want. Amenities is certainly important to them also, but we're really in order to really stay focused on parking. We've really fought hard to keep our scope tight and not get distracted by bells and whistles. So this is what you're going to see out of this program is going to be very basic parking. It's going to include restroom facilities and at locations that aren't at a current rest area. It's going to be primitive restroom facilities. There's going to be lighting, so we will have lighting. That's a safety issue, but that's about it. We're really trying to steer clear of other sort of wants rather than needs, because again, as we understand it, the real need out there is parking, and so in order to stretch our budget as far as we can and get as many parking spots built as possible, we're really trying to limit what we're doing, just keeping that to parking right now.
Yeah. Like I said, we've been tipping our caps here to you all here for a little while now. Hats off to you, Chris. Hats off to your team as well. For again taking this on and running, taking the ball and running with it. We'll continue with the Ohio State football analogy there. But Chris, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for your work on this, and we may check in with you here at some point down the line and see how things are going.
Hey, would always be glad to talk to you again. We're excited about this. Thanks for having me on the program today, and go Bucks.
Penske is the trusted source for quality used trucks. Whether you search our website, call our sales staff, or bid at our online auction, you are sure to find the right used truck for your business. Visit PenskeUsedTrucks.com to view our inventory and learn more.
High heat and low lubricity can break your diesel fuel down fast. Summer driving means crowded roads, more stress, dust, and a bigger risk of costly engine damage. Howes Diesel Defender protects from the inside out, cleaning, lubricating, and fighting injector wear. Visit HowesProducts.com.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
At Truck Stop, we've built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on Truck Stop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
And Ashley, great talk there with Chris Hughes of the Ohio DOT. And again, I know we keep giving them applause and pats on the back for
credit
this.
Where credit is due.
Exactly. And I think it's important that we do talk about these things because at least from my perspective, have seen a shift in this in recent years where I think more people in more states, more people who are able to make change on this issue are paying attention to it.
Yeah, which is good to see.
It's great to see. And I think as we told Chris there, the fact that they didn't just recognize a problem and then have, conduct 18 studies about, is this really a problem? Maybe it's a problem. They saw it was a problem and they took action and they're doing something about it. So super encouraging. Again, hats off to them. Pat on the back, whatever, any way you want to give them credit there. I think it's great. Another thing, too, we keep bringing up every time we talk to somebody with Ohio, and we were talking about this off the air, Ashley. Ohio State football is huge. Yeah. It's a culture. If you're an Ohio State Buckeye fan, you are in it. Saturdays are for football. Yeah. You are, and we were talking about this, you are Canadian. Yeah. I think you understand it now, but you did not quite understand the college football culture.
Yeah, I get it now, but first moving over here to the States, I couldn't wrap my head around why everyone was so diehard fans of these university teams that they didn't go to that university. Yeah. My husband, huge Hawkeyes fan. And I'm like, but you didn't
Iowa
there.
Hawkeye. But he's from Iowa.
But he's from, And so, I get it now.
It's a community thing.
It is a community thing, yeah. And no, I get it now. I'm not going.
Have you been to a college football game?
No. I've been to an NFL game.
Okay.
A couple of those.
And I've been to both. They're different experiences. Yeah. I would recommend going to a college football game. Okay. I would not recommend going to a Kansas Jayhawks game. That's because I'm a Mizzou Tiger fan.
Okay, yeah, I know the rivalry there.
But and that's the thing that's fun about it, right? Yeah. You got the rivalries,
It just took a while for me as a Canadian, in which we have universities, but they don't have the sports teams are not
Well, and that's a uniquely American. That's a uniquely American thing. I don't think any country,
you know what I mean? Interesting, yeah.
My daughter is in the orchestra at her high school, and she is actually going over to London for the New Year's Day parade. Wow. She's not in the marching band, but she's part of the overall group, I guess. They apparently, and we learned this from the assembly they had, they in the UK, they love marching bands because they don't have them there. They don't have that experience. And I got to thinking about that. I thought, it is a uniquely American type of thing,
which is
right?
Really cool, yeah.
Yeah, it is cool. It is really cool. Yeah, for that reason too, marching band. It's the whole thing.
Oh yeah, it's a whole,
Go to a college football game if you can this fall. Right. And I think anybody who goes, you may not
love it.
Fall in love with it, but you'll understand it. Yeah. And I think you understand
I'm
it now.
But you'll saying rock chalk Jayhawks.
Rock chalk Jayhawk. Yeah. That's more a basketball.
I'm amazed I know that.
More a basketball thing, but that's definitely a thing as well.
I'm impressed that I know that.
All right. Well, you need to adopt a college football team. Is what you need to do.
Probably Hawkeyes. I'd say
Hawkeyes.
Iowa.
All right. Well, there you go.
Got to stay loyal to my husband here.
You got it made. We've got it made for the weekend.
Yes.
We'll have a good one. Hope you do as well wherever you are. Thanks for listening, and thanks for all you do out there. Today's episode of Trucking with OOIDA was brought to you by a dedicated team of people that includes Jim Fetzer, Keegan White, Tennille Flick, and Kim Boren.
Got thoughts? We'd love to hear them. Call us at 1-800-324-6845. 856 and leave us a message, or you can send us an email to podcast@ooida.com, and we might include it on the show.